And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and we are sitting here, as usual, for group therapy. It's a special edition of the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show where we sit down and talk about everything that's going on in Livingston Parish. I'm going to let these two gentlemen introduce themselves. We're going to start on the viewer's right.
Hey, this is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor with the Livingston Parish News.
Thank you both. And so today we're going to start off with, there's a lot going on in Sulphur. Going to be more, we think, coming up in the coming weeks as the baseball playoffs continue. Obviously, softball playoffs wrapped up. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, we're going to start with David this week because especially you went for 2 days, correct, for the Denny Perkins trial? Was that 2 days or that started yesterday?
Oh, no. It was just yesterday was a hearing. I was in there for almost 6 hours. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so, tons of fun. Especially, I don't know if people quite understand, but we can't report from inside the courtroom. You're basically just sitting there listening.
Yes.
And in this day and age, sitting and listening is tough.
Yes.
But as it wraps up, you get out and come file your story. And, of course, the big story here is that Denny Perkins' trial has been moved to October, correct?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, well, last month, Dennis Perkins' attorney, Jared Ambo, filed a few different motions, requesting more evidence, asking certain pieces of evidence to be allowed during the trial, and then ultimately asking for a continuance because claiming that he has not received evidence from the Attorney General's office who's prosecuting the case, and he basically was saying he was entitled to this evidence. Among that was about 3,000 pictures and videos that he says his office has not been able to fully review. The Attorney General office, has argued, saying they have made every attempt to accommodate Mr. Ambo, but they cited, I believe, Mr. Ambo has been to the Attorney General's office 6 times since he was hired as counsel for Denny in December 2019, and 3 of those times came in the last 2 months. So, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth, just on, them making it available and him not making himself available, basically. But ultimately, yesterday, Judge Erica Sledge ruled that there are pieces of evidence that Dennis Perkins and his defense is entitled to have, that the state has to provide, and if there's questions on some of, if there's dispute on if that evidence should be handed over or not, then they will do an in-camera inspection, and she will be the final judge on that. But basically, that hearing was on Tuesday, the 3rd. The trial was supposed to officially start on Monday, May 9th, and she ruled that there was no way that amount of evidence could be reviewed properly in 6 days. And not only that, one of the forensic examiners testified that, yes, there are 3,000 pieces of evidence that the prosecution says is 99% of their case. He said that they have, in total, with this case, about 1 million pieces of digital evidence, that none of us had heard that figure before. It was Mr. Ambo kind of did a double take when he heard 1 million, because that was just a number nobody had heard. That pieces of property that that the defense is claiming that is his property. If it's not going to be used as evidence, and if it's not contraband, then it should be turned over to Dennis Perkins and his defense, so they could see what they could use for their defense, because there's his constitutional right. He's entitled to make whatever defense he feels is necessary, and those other, I guess you could say, hundreds of thousands of files of evidence could help him present that case. So, long hearing yesterday. That's the 2-minute synopsis of a 6-hour hearing yesterday, but short bullet point, it is being pushed back to October 11th.
No, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
6 hours into 2 minutes.
Yeah,
nice.
1,000-word story today. So there you go.
So the other thing we're going to talk about legally, and then we're going to jump back to Rob, and then come back to you for a few results from over the weekend. Mr. Lane Hardy was set to celebrate and was a participant because it was pre-recorded on the 20th anniversary of
Yes.
American Idol.
Mhm.
That's correct. So he was part of their 20th anniversary celebration, but unfortunately, that appearance was marred by a little bit of I don't know what to call it. I'm gonna let you tell
Eavesdropping charge, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a. So, for those who don't know and you shouldn't know, I was on a bachelor trip last week, Thursday through Saturday, and then late Thursday night, I get an alert that from on Lane Hardy's Facebook page about saying that he was issued a search warrant or issued a warrant from East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, and that he was cooperating with authorities. Didn't really say what it was about, just said he was asking for privacy due to the sensitive nature of the allegations. Next morning, Mr. Hardy was arrested or booked into the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office on eavesdropping charge. Based on accusations from a former partner that he had left a voice activating recording device in her dorm room and had recorded quote very candid conversations. That's a quote from the affidavit that I received regarding the investigation. So yeah, that was kind of the I had just written a story 2 or 3 days earlier about he was going to be one of the people returning to Idol on Monday for their anniversary celebration. It was one of the winners, season 17 winner, one of the youngest to ever win, the first Louisiana-born singer to win. So it just kind of was, yeah, like marred. That was the perfect word by that. And during his performance was still on the show on Monday, but there was a disclaimer at the bottom that said previously recorded. So this was apparently recorded about a month ago. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a shame that happened. Just a couple days before he was, returned to the place that made him a star, and we'll wait to see what happens. But the charge, it was one count of interpretation and disclosure of wire, electronic, or oral communication, which is a felony, and that has a penalty of a fine of up to $10,000 and possibly 2 to 10 years in prison. So I mean, a pretty serious charge that was levied against Lane Hardy, but we'll kind of see how the legal process plays out.
Sure. So it's plenty of legal news for everybody today. We're going to jump back over to Rob. We are going to come back to David for some election results from this weekend. But first, Rob, we once again, and this has become kind of a staple from these ladies, we have a state champion in softball.
Correct. Holden did it again for the 5th time in a row. That cannot be understated. They just kind of kept it going, and this time it was a little different. They in the semifinals against Florine, they had to come back, I believe, twice. And you'll have to forgive me on that because I was actually covering the Walker game as the Holden game was going on at a field behind me, so I was following that one on Game Changer. Thank you, Game Changer. Otherwise, I couldn't do some stuff. But it was just a little bit different. I'm just kind of wondering. I actually asked a couple of players, like, do you guys remember the last time y'all trailed in Sulphur? Because I honestly could not remember. Gracie Duffy hits a 3-run home run to kind of turn the rally around in that semifinal game, and then she hits in the championship game. Starts off kind of you can't say rocky against Anacoco, but Taylor Douglas faces their leadoff batter. There's a 13 pitch at bat to start the game, and she takes her straightaway center for a home run. So it's 1-0 like that. And then they kind of come back and Gracie hits a 3-run shot, and I think they go up 4-1 if I remember correctly. And then it was kind of back and forth a little bit. And then in the 6th inning, Taylor Douglas hits a home run, and then Gracie hits a home run, and Casey Brightup got a home run with 2 outs in there to kind of ice it for him. And it's just a little bit different for him. Gracie winds up winning the outstanding player. If you count them just on home runs, that was 3 home runs in the tournament, 7 RBIs, just on the home runs. That's a pretty good weekend, folks, at the state tournament.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, so congratulations to the Lady Rockets.
Yeah, they just kind of keep it going. Keep it going there.
But unfortunately, we had 2 other teams that made it to Sulphur but did not make it out of the semifinal round. That would be Walker and Doyle. Give us a little bit of a wrap for their season.
Looking at the Walker game, they come in with 6 seniors, and they had all been there before as freshmen, and they'd been really consistent in what they were doing in everything they were doing, the offense, the defense, and pitching. Got some of the offense. The pitching was good, but they made some errors on defense. And when I talked to Coach Westmoreland after the game, it's one of those things where when you make errors, they don't have to be huge, but when they're in a state tournament game in a stage like that, they're just kind of magnified in what they do, and they all kind of led to runs. And then offensively, Walker was able to get some hits, but they were used to getting those back-to-back hits and putting those rallies together. They didn't get back-to-back hits until the last inning, and they still wound up stranding runners. They lost 6-0, so they didn't score in that one. And it's Santa Moss, so you knew coming in that, looking at those scores, it was probably going to be another low score in a game, and that's what you got there. So, the hope there for Walker is that they lose that big senior class, but the hope is that the folks, the underclassmen behind them, they've gotten a taste of it, kind of like those seniors did when they were freshmen, and they want to get back to it. So you hope that's the driving force for them. I would think so.
Sure. And then Doyle.
For Doyle, it's one of those things where they get the big win over Rose Pine in the quarterfinals to advance, which was huge for the program at the time, and then they come in and see number 1 seed Manny, which beat them last year for that state title, and Tia Holmes threw a perfect game for Manny in that one. It was just one of those things where you're starting an 8th grader in the circle in Sulphur for the first time, and just Coach DeSalle chalked it up to nerves, which and I've said it many times. I've written about it. If you've never been there, if you've never experienced, it's a whole nother ball game, so to speak.
Sure.
Just in terms of the crowd, the noise, and everything going on with it. So they have an 8th grader starting there, and then they bring in Ava, the 10th grader, and then they have to swap out. They combine to walk 10 people, which it doesn't matter who you're playing. That's never good. And the other part was that the bats seemed like they started coming around for them. For Doyle, but it just didn't happen that day, and it's one of those things where you look at it and Coach DeSalle chalked it up to inexperience, but at the same time you kind of forget how young that team is. They've only got 1 senior in KK Savant who's going to graduate, so the hope is this is a learning experience, and hey, you take it, you learn from it, and we'll be back here next year and we'll do some better things.
Sure. So unfortunate end for those squads, but lots of experience. And lots of experience coming back.
I think that's the key for everybody. And holding no seniors on this team.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, and it seems like, some of them have been playing since they were 7th grade, legitimately. And it's just like, you just go, okay.
Sure.
Coach Andrew said tradition never graduates. And for her, that was her first appearance, coaching in a state tournament. So that's obviously going to help her, because it's one of those things where, so how was it for you? And it's kind of like the eyes get big, you get nervous, and but once you go, you kind of experience a little bit, you get an idea of what's going on, and hopefully that helps you down the road.
Sure. So let's talk about baseball real quick. The playoffs are in full swing. Who's still left, and tell us what they got left.
It's we get down to Doyle and Springfield in 2A. That's all we got left. Springfield's number 2 seed. They're going to host number 10 Avoya's Public Charter. That's it's a best 2 out of 3 series is where they're at now in the quarterfinals. So they're going to be there at Springfield Friday. 6:30 for the first game, 11 o'clock on Saturday for the second, and then 2 o'clock if they have to play that third one. And then Doyle's number 11 seed. They're going to host number 19, Darbon Woods Charter. Darbon Woods knocked off number 3, Kinder, which is, you're looking at these numbers. I talked to Coach Blanchard at Springfield early this morning, and he said you get to this point, those seeding numbers don't really mean a whole lot because you've got good baseball teams throughout the playoffs, the remainder. For Doyle series, it's going to be Friday at 6 for the first one, Saturday at noon for the second, and Saturday at 3 if they have to play it. The fun part out of this is if both of those teams win, we'll head up to Sulphur and watch them play one more time in the semifinals.
And they'll play each other.
Yes, they will play each other.
So, well, oh man,
road
so
trip.
it guarantees a Livingston Parish team in the championship, but unfortunately, it can only be one of them.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I mean, and if you go back and look at those games they played this year during district, those were some just really fantastic games, and I see no reason why. Of course they've got to get there,
Yep.
but I see no reason why you wouldn't have another excellent game between those two teams.
So we will be seeing what goes on this Friday and Saturday for both of those.
Correct.
Teams. You're gonna be busy.
It's okay. It's okay.
So let's pop back over to David to wrap up the show. We had 2 elections this weekend on Saturday. Both of them tax proposals. I believe in Albany it was a half cent, and for Fire Protection District 4 it was a millage, correct?
Yes.
So let's start with Albany.
Albany, yes. It was a half-cent sales tax that the money from that will remain in the Albany school district to go towards construction projects, improvements in the Albany schools. Dr. Devin Gregoire, school board member for Albany. This was part of a push. Originally, it was supposed to be sales tax coupled with a millage to build a new elementary school, but with the rise of construction costs, that kind of fell through. So he settled on just a sales tax, and it's going to not build a elementary school, but it will go towards some much needed expansions at the Albany schools. The first 2 that are going to begin will be a new middle school gym and a new elementary cafeteria. That way the cafeteria lunch times for Albany lower and upper elementary schools will be able to be separate. And with those 2 projects, the new cafeteria and new middle school gym, they'll actually have some classes that'll be added to those building. So you're also getting some new extra classrooms out of this, which is much needed at Albany, according to Mr. Gregoire. It's starting to get pretty packed over there. So, and that was actually, that was the reason that he wanted to build a new school, just to kind of ease some of that congestion that they have, and also prepare for the future, because the growth is still coming. So that was passed by almost 60% voted for, about 41% voted against. So yeah, that was the first one, and then the millage is a 15 mil increase to the existing property tax, so 25 mils total now. The 15 mil increase will be on the books for the next 20 years, and I'll have to go up for renewal once again. And this one passed. It was a little slimmer. This one was 55% voted for and 45% voted against. But District 4 has said that this is the first time they've come to the public to ask for money since the first property tax was passed in 1975. So they haven't gotten an increase in nearly 50 years. Back then the parish was 45,000 people total, and now District 4 covers 60,000 by itself in its own geographical area. So this is going to go towards improving equipment, adding more full-time firefighters, and hopefully building a new service station in the Satsuma area. I believe they already have an area picked out. It's just that they've never had the funds to actually go through with that. So that's what this will go to. The Albany tax is supposed to bring in about 200 to 300,000 a year, and this 15 mil increase is supposed to bring in an extra 3.9 million on top of the 2.6 million the District 4 already received. So yeah, just going towards upgrading, just basically being able to provide more services to the people that they serve.
So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on how they spend that money going forward. But both of those have passed. So now we are done with spring elections.
Yes.
Legislative session's got about a month to wrap up, and then we'll be waiting for fall election.
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be fun. And at this point, fall Denny Perkins. So yeah, that'll all be right there together. So yeah, let's get ready for the third and fourth quarter. How fun, or not. So thank you both, gentlemen, for taking the time to join us. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, and I believe we started on the right, so we're going to start on the left this time.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. This is Group Therapy. It's a special show we do where I sit down with these two gentlemen and talk about what's going on in Livingston Parish. I want to remind everybody that the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We do hope you have a great day be sure to follow us on social media, especially Rob on Twitter. Got all that sports information coming out real quick, and we usually try to take it and post it on Facebook as well. And I did forget to mention Springfest was packed this weekend.
Oh, yeah. You went to that.
We got some I went out there twice. I went out there about 10 a.m., went back to my house at 11. Wasn't real happy with the first set of photos that I got because it was very sunny and didn't adjust my settings very well. So went back out, got some more. Hope they passed muster with the controller over here, Mr. David Gray. But it was tons of people. Even at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon was hot. They were still out there. So good event. Good to have Springfest back after some cancellations during COVID. So anyway, we appreciate you guys joining us, and we will see you next time.